you all hear me? Is this good? Closer? Yes, amazing. Hello, everyone. Super lovely to be here. I thought I'd put this slide up first to show what I'm not talking about. So in this short talk, I'll get immediately to the point. I'm here to talk about puzzle design, specifically puzzles that really, really belong in your world. So picture any game when you go down into an old dungeon and discover loads of AK-47s. Not that. We're going to talk a little bit more immersive than that. So who am I? Very, very quickly. Thank you. My name is Mairi Nolan. Actually, my full name is Mairi Spaceship Nolan. That is my real middle name. You can ask that at the end if you want to know more information about that. And I am a puzzle designer. So I work in physical escape rooms, I work in board games, I work in immersive experiences, and video games as well. Basically, any possible game that could have some kind of puzzle in it, probably work on it. And if I'm not working on it, I want to work on it already. So yeah, puzzle design first, medium second is what I do. Next slide, please. So these are some of the games I've designed puzzles on. If anyone has any more questions about them, can answer at the end. But as well as designing puzzles, as Steve says, I also write a lot about puzzle games. So I compile something called the Escape Industry Newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter about escape rooms. I write for the Escape Rumor. I sometimes write a newsletter called Thinky Third Thursday. I'm also involved in Thinky Games as an article writer. Yeah, love talking about them, whether it talks or literally down at any pub. Anyone will listen to me, I'll be like, yep, let me tell you about my favorite puzzle games. And yeah, I also work for a company called Drachnick & Friends, who are a puzzle publisher and designer as well. So yeah, this is me. Moving on. What am I talking about today? So I want to talk about diegesis in puzzle design. So first of all, we need to talk about what diegesis is in general. So diegesis is a style of fiction storytelling in which a participating narrator offers an on-site, often interior view of the scene to a reader. So what is that? That is a story told, the act of telling a story by a narrator who's presenting the story. And when we refer to diegesis in cinema, we're referring to the internal world created by the story that the characters themselves are experiencing, but in relation to us, the audience, the viewer. Now, it is not lost on me that I'm talking to a room of storytellers, and I'm sure if I polled every one of you, we could probably come up with a bit of a better definition. But I'm a puzzle designer, not a narrative designer, so we're going to go with this one today, and yeah. So yeah, in games, when we talk about something being diegetic, it usually belongs to the world depicted and exists within it. So not as an external addition by a narrator or a designer, typically when we talk about it in games. Next slide, please. So some examples. Diegetic music or sound. So when a sound is diegetic in a game, the source is coming from within the world itself and can be heard by the characters within it. So in puzzle games, if we are doing a lockpick and we're hearing the click-click of the lockpick, are the characters within that world also hearing it, or is it us just solving the puzzle at home, for example? And when it's non-diegetic, there's a soundtrack playing over the top, like in a cutscene, which is an excellent tool for puzzle design. But yeah, is it diegetic? Does it exist in the world? And another example, diegetic UI. So consider diegetic and non-diegetic UI elements in a game. So consider a health bar or a map pinned to the corner of a screen. Is this something that the character in the world knows about, or is it something that just us at home know about? Is the style and presentation consistent with the universe? In puzzles, for example, UI might be an object glowing to show that it's clickable. It might be the character seeing the glow, or is it like, does this item just glow in the world, or is this a piece of UI that's designed for us, the puzzle solver at home? Now, the three examples I put up on the screen as well, oh, sorry, back. The three examples I've got just very, very quickly, not puzzles, but the top one is Astroneer, which I think has one of the most fantastic diegetic inventory system ever. So you can literally see everything you've got in this room here. We've also got Dead Space, where you've got some of the UI literally on the back of the first-person character you're controlling. And we've got Jazzpunk, which is, I put this example here, it's not really a puzzle game, but when you're sort of waiting in a room, the camera will literally start pointing towards the object you want to click on, like the goal of the scene, which I think is just very, very clever. So I put it in here as a little example. Amazing. So what do we mean when we go even further than diegesis? So this is when I start putting my immersive experience hat on, and I talk about something called mimesis. So mimesis is, it's another term which is thinking about the ability a game has to immerse you in its world. and in order to stop thinking about the game as the external object. So in films and books, and in games too, diegesis and mimesis can often be considered opposites. It's not as clean-cut as that, because this is a term for sort of film and not necessarily games, but are you being explained the elements of the world? Then it's diegetic. But are you seeing them as an inside agent? Then it's mimetic. All mimesis is diegetic, but not all diegesis is mimesis. And I promise I will stop just talking about in terms of like words now. We will get into actual examples, but I thought it might be helpful to begin the talk with a little bit of definitions so we're all kind of on the same page. And I think that in games when we strive for greater diegesis, we find ourselves, especially in puzzle design, aiming more and more to mimesis. So that's going to be a little bit about what this talk is about and where that distinction lies. But yeah, what does that all mean? You're not here to be lectured by a non-narrative writer about narrative stuff, so I will get into more puzzles. Show me the puzzles. So when designing for diegetic puzzles, we can ask ourselves the following questions about the puzzle and its role within the world. So, does this puzzle exist in universe? And I mean that in terms of like, am I seeing a pop-up where I have to solve a little puzzle, or is this puzzle actually in the world that I'm exploring? We can also ask, does it make sense for the universe? So same kind of thing, like, am I using the elements of the universe and the game that I'm exploring to puzzle solve, to interact with the world, or is this something that's taking me out of the game? Is it at least similarly themed to the other elements of the game's world? I'm in a Lara Croft themed underground place. Am I at least handling realistic items, or am I handling AK-47s? Like this kind of question we can ask ourselves. And more importantly, consider the puzzle setter as well. So as we push more from diegesis into mimesis, we can ask ourselves things like whether the person or the individual or the situation that set the puzzle exists in universe. Who made the puzzle? Why did they make the puzzle? Who did they make the puzzle for? And more importantly, who is the player in the context of the puzzle? So in a nutshell, diegetic puzzles fit the world, they advance the story, and they're often perfect metaphors for what you're doing. So the logic and their answer are perfectly bounded within what the player sees at home. It's part of the story. They don't need external information. They're all within that world. And in particular, I love this example where what I'm solving happens to be perfectly and entertainingly solvable within my character's abilities. So like a jump in a platformer game that is exactly perfectly the jump that I can do, and that next level, it needs a double jump, but I haven't unlocked it yet. That's what I mean. And I mean that with the biggest respect in the world, like Chef's Kiss. It's diegetic, maybe not necessarily mimetic, but it's a great example of a diegetic situation. So here are some examples. Uncharted. Let's take Uncharted, for example. 1 second, I'm going to sort my notes out. Let's take Uncharted. You solve puzzles in an ancient temple in order to descend further into the temple. In this particular game, A Thief's End, which is great, by the way, you encounter this ancient secret wheel in the middle of the space with a very simple match the images lock, which is entirely unrelated to the language of the time and can be solved by just about anyone. It's amazing. It's diegetic. It's really fun. Fits the world. Great. No notes. Next example. Paper Mario, Origami King, also a great game. I've only put my favorite games in this slide, by the way. In this, the castle of my antagonist is perfectly suited and filled with puzzles that can be solved by someone of my very, very specific paper-based abilities. Why? Because it's a game. It's fun. And this is a great diegetic, well-themed puzzle that fits within the universe. And sure, if this was a mimetic world, maybe that the castle would not be perfectly suited to my abilities. Maybe my enemy would have tried a little bit harder to keep me out. But that would be suspending disbelief, and it wouldn't be a very fun game. Next example, one of my favorite games of all time. Oh my God, masterclass in puzzle design. The Rue Trees Are Dead. So this is probably one of my favorite games from the last few years. And you have to piece together a family tree through research in documents and an in-game online search engine. This game is so, so satisfying. It is diegetic in all of the ways, but very unmimetic in the way that so you get access to this search engine and you have to figure out, who's related to who dated who had a secret illicit love affair with who, and they give you the internet. But it's not the real internet. There's an internet with a very limited number of pages you can go and search, because if you were given access to the, 10 billion, probably 1 trillion web pages now, that would take you such a long time to solve. So it completely fits within the constructed universe of the game, and it makes it fun. you're given the snapshot of what you need to solve the puzzle. It's a very, very fun logical deduction game. Next example, BioShock. Then there's games like BioShock. So I could have pulled from many, many games, but I chose BioShock's hacking minigame. So in this game, you have to hack terminals. So you go into the terminal and you fiddle around with pipes, and these pipe hack moments sort of gently increase in difficulty across the game as your ability goes up. So I connect the pipes, I hack, and it serves the game. And it's actually so much fun. I love these kind of puzzles as well. But it's a total metaphor. It's not mimetic because no hacking system in the world would ever use like green goo traveling around pipes. Like it's even the fact that there are little like boxes with question marks. Like, I don't know, if anyone in here is hacking, please tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think hacking looks like this. I don't know. But yeah, this is the thing. Like, it's halfway to mimesis because you can see you are kind of holding the hacking terminal. You can have like, you've taken the panel off, you are looking inside, but if it were a real hacking puzzle, I think that would probably be insurmountable to most people. Like, BioShock is not a game about learning how to hack. It's a fun game, and this is a very small mini game, and so the puzzle serves it very well, very diegetically. And the very last example is not a game, it's a film, and this film keeps me up at night. I love Stargate, by the way, it's absolutely fantastic. But it has a puzzle in it, which drives me crazy. There's a moment in Stargate. That's my Letterboxd review. You can add me on Letterboxd if you want. There's a moment in Stargate where they have a giant cipher wheel, and in order to turn on the Stargate, they say you need to put 7 symbols in. And this whole team of scientists is like, yeah, we've got 6 of the 7 symbols in order, and it's taken us 2 years to figure out the 7th symbol, and they have 36 possible options, and it takes them like 5 minutes to fire up the Stargate machine. And I'm watching this at home as a competitive escape room player, like, oh my God, please solve an escape room. Just please take you on a team building, just go to an escape room. It's a greatly diegetic puzzle for this moment, and I love it, but it's not a mimetic puzzle. And so, yeah, like, what does this mean then for like striving towards greater mimesis? If I'm gonna gatekeep, which I'm not, I would stand here and say there are no mimetic puzzles, but that would be both untrue and very unhelpful. But true mimesis is very hard to do in all kinds of games, especially puzzle games, because doing things, as I said, like actually learning a programming language and learning how to hack a computer, or, as I will go in a couple of examples down the road, learning an alien language. The more mimetic that is, the less fun it's probably going to be. And solving a murder, like a real murder mystery, that is not as fun as it is in a game, let me tell you. So I say that like I've done it. I don't know, I was just having a great conversation outside about like unsolved mysteries, so maybe. But yeah, when considering mimesis, we take the constructed universe into account, and we take the fantasy of playing a game into account as well. So, some examples. Portal. I am a massive fan of Portal, and I do think that Portal is a beautifully mimetic game, and I will tell you why. So, the in-world universe is a testing facility where you, the player, have to prove yourself capable of solving puzzles or you die. In the game, we meet our antagonist, it's GLaDOS, she is the puzzle setter, and probably if you took any one of the puzzles out of context, you'd be like, oh, okay, great puzzle, but like arbitrary, diegetic. But I think it's a pretty mimetic puzzle because from every aspect of the world, from the portal gun to who you are, to the source of the sound, to the source of the layout, to every single thing, it's so diegetic, it's basically mimetic. It's like almost as close to a mimetic game as you can possibly get. And it's not just Portal. There's a big genre of like test chamber kind of games, especially that's arisen in the last sort of 5 years and become very popular. And I think they're all pretty mimetic. Like when you have a clear view of who the setter is and who you are, it gets towards that. But this one's a great example, and I could not give a talk about puzzles without mentioning Portal. So there you go. And the next one is a little bit of a niche example. So I don't know if anyone has played Rogue Escape or if anyone's into VR games, but I am a big fan of a Rogue Escape. And I swear by the mimesis of this game. Unlike Portal, I find its mimesis very challenging, like it's not an easy game, but it's based on the original called Nauticrawl, I believe, and then they made a VR version of it. I don't know, maybe the designers are in this audience, maybe I'm making a fool of myself, but yeah, great game if you're a designer. And I think this is one of the most mimetic puzzle games I've ever played because in Rogue Escape, you play yourself on an alien planet, trying to steal a giant crawling mech and escape to your freedom. But this alien planet is completely foreign to you. Nothing about this world is even built for someone of your physical dimensions. Especially me, I'm very short, by the way, so like me and my little VR headset on, like trying to reach buttons and stuff in like a mech that's built for something twice my size. It's a really interesting challenge and something I think the VR nature of this game has done very, very well. But taking a step back, there is another way of looking at it, and I teased this a little bit before, but one of my favorite genre of puzzle games to talk about ever is language deciphering games. So if we jump from genre to genre in the puzzle game, if we just focus in on the one genre, so hopefully this will be a better example, we have language deciphering games. So in the big old graph of diegetic sort of on the left, it would have been really helpful if I'd actually labeled this, but diegetic on the left, no, non-diegetic on the left, diegetic in the middle, and mimetic on the end. At this end, you have a game like Prose and Codes, which is a very, very simple substitution cipher. So every letter of the English alphabet has another one-to-one letter with another, or a symbol or a letter or whatever it is. But in Prose and Codes, you're just using basically a Caesar cipher to decipher famous quotes. It's a great game. I play it all the time. Love it. Not very diegetic. Then moving up, you get to games like Chants of Senna and Heaven's Vault in the middle. Shout out to John's talk earlier today. And yeah, so games like that, they're much more deep. They are ciphers. They fall into that category broadly, but they're much more deep. It really evokes the feeling of solving a language because you get to kind of go up against really interesting rules about it. You get to kind of like think like, well, this is syllabic. This part is like different sentence construction, like the rules about like gendered words and stuff like starts to get really interesting, but it's still very much a game. You're having a lot of fun. It's not as punishing as actually solving a language. It's very much the fantasy of solving an alien language. Then recently, this fourth game I added quite late to this presentation because I played it and I was like, oh, this is a really interesting example and I want to talk about it. It's called Sethian, and it is a, how can I describe this? It's basically, it's not a puzzle game. It's a sci-fi language deciphering game about talking to a computer in an alien language. It's not perfect, but it's a very interesting use of like how to kind of do that language deciphering. And I would put it a little bit further up towards mimesis than, for example, Chants of Senna and Heaven's Vault, but it's a very interesting one. And then right at the end, we have a game called Epigraph, which, oh my God, is one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. I still wake up in a cold sweat thinking about this game almost every night. It kind of asks the question, like, is this a gamified representation of decrypting a language, or are you literally doing the thing? This game has like 3 screens and will take you about 40 hours to solve. And there's, like, it's just impossible, but it's a great alien language deciphering game. Cannot recommend it enough. It'll ruin your life. I'm so sorry. You should try it. But yeah, incredibly mimetic, to the point that I'm like, am I even having fun anymore? I don't know if I am. So yeah, next slide. So what does this all mean? What am I even actually talking about? What is my point? This should be the part in the talk where I make a very big sweeping statement about games, but as I kind of touched upon, like, games are a fantasy of an activity, and a puzzle game is no different. What I mean is, just like in a game like Cooking Mama, you don't have to wait 30 minutes for your oven to preheat before you cook. The game conveys the fantasy of cooking. It's the same in puzzle games. The fantasy is us, the player, is smart and overcomes an appropriate intellectual challenge for their skill. And yeah, we get that feeling when we play and solve puzzle games. But most puzzle games are not actually, as I said, us having to learn like complex programming languages. Like Bioshock, no one wants to learn complex programming language there. We're not deciphering an ancient language, unless you're playing Epigraph. Great game. We're not like going through the billion web pages to try and like solve a murder mystery that's hidden somewhere. Because all these things take a lot of time and effort and will probably not be fun. And I come back to the murder mystery example. If you want a mimetic murder mystery, go and join the police. I promise you it'll not be fun. And actually, take it from me, out of university, I did join the police and I worked on a major investigations unit, and it was the worst job of my life. I'm sorry if anyone, the police is in the audience, but it was not mimetic, it was not fun. It wasn't the fantasy of solving a murder that I thought it would be. So there we go. And that sort of brings me-ish towards my conclusion. So I could talk about this for hours, but this is just a half an hour talk, a bit less. We'll have Q&A at the end. But, so I will make it snappy. Yes. In puzzle game design, I'm thinking about diegesis and mimesis constantly. So if anyone here in the audience is designing puzzles as well, I do strongly encourage you to think about it as well. But picking one and being like, I'm going to make the most diegetic puzzle in the world, I'm going to make the most mimetic puzzle in the world, also has its limit in how helpful that can be for designing a good puzzle. I hope I've communicated that often the most mimetic puzzles, maybe not the most fun, and the most diegetic puzzle could be picked apart very easily as being a very silly application of a puzzle. So yeah, hopefully if I can impart anything, it would be to share those things. And up on the screen, we've got a few tips that I would generally take away. So I do a lot of mentorship in puzzle design, and these are some of the things I get people I mentor to think about. The first one being to consider your world. So more specifically, like, that's such a big question, consider your world. Like, what is the world we're designing puzzles for? Are you designing something within the environment of this constructed world you've come up with? Or are you designing a puzzle on top to like sit in a box, to like be a delay, like whatever that is? More than considering the world though, consider the player's role within that world. Like, how do you get your player to care about this? Why are we solving the puzzle? Like, is it literally just an arbitrary gate, or is this part of the greater mystery? And yeah, whatever, depending on the genre of puzzle you're designing, if you are designing something, you maybe don't have all the answers, but this is one of the most important questions to think about when coming up with a puzzle. I would also say consider the puzzle setter. So whether the puzzle setter is an individual character in the game, maybe it is the universe itself, maybe it's a situation. Like, yeah, why is this puzzle being presented to the player, and what does it mean for the player to be solving this within the world? I also say design from the world around you. This is a very, very obvious one, but if you are designing a diegetic or mimetic puzzle in your world, go into that space and see what the things are happening in that space and where that puzzle might come from. Again, don't literally mean like if you're designing a murder mystery, go hang out with the police. Don't do that. But, like kind of immerse yourself in that space. Go to the space that you are designing for, if you can, unless you are designing one that's like an alien. You can't do that, but do something close. And my last thing is maybe actually don't worry about it too much. Like, it's a great lens for thinking about how to set up a puzzle, but I think so long as you design a fun puzzle, your players can suspend a lot of disbelief. And yeah, I think we should be chasing the fun more generally. Like, at the end of the day, with enough set dressing, no player is going to question why the supposedly natural cave is perfectly suited for their character's body, or why these rocks in my path happen to be arranged in a way that I can perfectly push them into a path to traverse this thing. I'm thinking about soccer band games. But yeah, people will suspend their disbelief when they're playing the game. We are, after all, playing a game, and it is the fantasy of playing the game. We want to be entertained, and in the very specific case of puzzle games, we want to feel smart, we want to have fun. So I will leave you with one very quick story. So I've been a puzzle designer for about 10 years, and I actually think I finally designed my magnum opus, like my best puzzle game ever, and it is so silly, but please hear me out. So, I host this podcast called The Infinite Escape Room. This is not an ad, I promise. You don't have to go listen to it, but I want to tell you about a puzzle I designed for it. In The Infinite Escape Room, we take it in turns to host an audio escape room for each other. So I do one, and then where mine ends, the next person designs the next one, and the next person. So we kind of keep going forever in this never-ending escape room. For Halloween this year, the four of us got together and we were like, we want to do horror. Horror has a really interesting relationship with diegesis, and yeah, I don't really know where I personally sit on horror. Again, I like talking about horror a lot, but horror, man, I'm a scaredy cat, I'm sorry. But I think when you think about horror and diegesis, or horror mimesis, let's go all the way, horror mimesis, the most mimetic horror game I could do for my co-hosts on this podcast would be to show up at their house and chase them around with knives, but that's both inappropriate for Spotify, and also I quite like my co-hosts and I would rather not upset them in that way. But so what I did in the end was I prepared this relatively cliche, inoffensive audio escape room themed around The Ring. Creepy girl coming out the TV, sort of, no, not like that, but something like that. And then at some point, so that my co-hosts, they are playing themselves, so they're playing the characters of themselves, and we're hamming it up for the audio, we're a little bit spooked, but there's a strong layer of safety. We're all sitting in our comforts of our own home, and we're all just chatting about puzzles. And then at some point in the puzzles, I kind of like dial it up a little bit. So I start like getting them to kind of describe scenes which are sort of from their houses, and then I use pictures from their workplaces, and then I like start to like dial it up with photos of people like standing outside their houses that I organize, and then in the end it ends with this like creepy file embedded on all of their phones that they have to like go and find, and it's like a massive reverse fourth wall break. So what I tried to do as a designer was I tried to turn the diegesis dial up just enough into mimesis to make it an experience that they were having and no longer their characters were having. Don't get me wrong, like none of the puzzles in this particular episode are anything like particularly special. They're very easy-ish puzzles. Like we wanted to keep the recording under an hour at the end. But the whole experience, honestly, chef's kiss, if I'm allowed to hype myself up for a second, it was really good. Point being, diegesis and mimesis were excellent lenses for setting up a good puzzle game and balancing things like the role of the player, the role of the audience, and how the puzzles fit into all of that. But if like my 10 or so years puzzle design has taught me anything, there's that mimesis and diegesis is a springboard and not necessarily the end goal. I think what matters most is designing for your audience, designing for fun, and games as a whole, as I need not tell everyone in this room, great opportunity to have the player really embody the world they're in, have an experience they couldn't possibly have anywhere else. And yeah, when I describe it like that, it sounds like mimetic. And so yeah, great thing to strive towards. But at the end of the day, it's about the player designing for following the fun. And that's about it for my presentation, but I wanted some references and sources. All of this was revealed to me in a dream. I'm kidding. Real references source, thank you. There we go. I'll leave these up on the screen, but there's a bunch of people who write really interesting things about mimesis and diegesis and escape rooms, puzzle games. Have made some interesting talks, made some interesting articles. All the games I've referenced as well are here. And yeah, just a thank you to people who put up with me while I was trying to write this talk as well. So yeah, thank you to all these people.